I don't think I was weird. I'm not weird. You all are weird.
Hey everybody, your buddy Basil here, and you are listening to the Joyspiracy Theory. Welcome back. You're back, I'm back, we're all back. And in this interview we have Peter. Wow. Okay, hold on. But before I tell you about Peter, I'm just gonna remind everybody, you can head over to patreon.com/the Joyspiracy Theory. If you find this show helpful or rewarding or valuable in any way, you can head over to patreon.com/the Joyspiracy Theory. And for just the price of a cup of coffee every month, you can support this show and help keep it going. You're entirely listener supported. So if you're looking for a way to let me know how much you enjoy the show, that is a great way to do it. Or go ahead and click that share button. It's just text this episode straight to a friend or post it on Facebook. Give me a tag or something so I can give you one of those cool blue thumbs up, which we all apparently value so highly. And if you haven't done it yet, if financial support is not in the cards for you, you can head over to iTunes or whatever podcatcher you're using and leave a rating or a review. Ratings are done in stars. You all know this. And reviews is just putting all that into words. And that really helps out the show. Let's say iTunes robots know that people like it. More people need to listen to it. But enough about that. Let's talk about Peter. Peter is one of the Joyspiracy Theory's resident psychonauts. We're going to learn a lot about LSD, people. So strap in. I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but this guy's probably done more LSD than anybody I've ever even heard of. Also, have you ever wondered what it's like to escape a mental institution? Well, we can get some first-hand account of that. And maybe mental institution is not the correct term. Psychiatric ward is a clinical term. Also, Peter tells us about how he learned the secrets of the universe, all revealed to him while he was working at a truck stop, meeting well, you'll see. You'll see. All right, guys, so we're going to jump into it here. And remember, head over to patreon.com/the Joyspiracy Theory. But more importantly, just sit back, relax, and I don't know. Actually, you might want to put your seatbelt on for this one. Okay, let's go.
Basil,
Is this Peter?
this is he.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I am swell. How are you?
Oh, I am just swell as well. Before we get into it, you know what I'm going to ask. What are you grateful for today?
Oh, I knew what you were going to ask,
You knew it.
and now I'm drawing a blank. No, I'm actually thankful for my little dog, for oxygen,
Good one.
running water,
Mhm.
and just the fact that we're able to do this with the magic of technology.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised. I think you're the first guy to list oxygen. And I'm always, I always think when people don't have something ready, I'm like, hey, man, oxygen. God, thank God for oxygen.
Yeah, I don't really think we would be able to do much without it.
No, I guess he could have made us require something else, like cotton candy or something in our lungs. But that's all besides the point, Peter. I'm so happy to have you on the show, bud. And so I'm going to start off by saying you answered the call. I had a interview drop out today, and I sent out some requests, and you were there and willing to pick up the slack. And I thank you very much for that. I'm very excited about this.
Cool.
Good.
It's a blessing. I'm blessed, and honestly, I wasn't prepared. I thought, because I was going to try to do a huge preparation before before you were going to do this. I'm like, I got to be prepared like a professional. And then I thought, nope, let's just let's just run and gun this
You
puppy.
you did the right thing, man. You know, nothing against being prepared, and a lot of people come prepared. But for me personally, I feel, you know, a lot of times when people come too prepared, they try to drive the car, and they're
That's
not
right.
driving the car. I'm driving the car here.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
you get
you're the captain.
so you get to just sit back and enjoy the ride, which I get to do too. And I'm kind of looking forward to this one. I was gonna say, you, just to be transparent to everybody, in the email that you sent me, you listed off quite the interesting collection of life events, and so I'm excited to hear about all of it. But before we get into that, you know, we got to start from the beginning, man.
It's a good place to start.
That's right. It's a very good place to start. So why don't we start at the very beginning? First of all, where are you now? And then where'd you come from?
Currently in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, nice.
Perhaps you've heard of it.
Los
Pretty big.
Angeles.
It's a big town.
Yeah, no. Hey, I spent my time down there, and I occasionally wonder what life would be like if I moved back down there. You know, here's the one thing about Los Angeles. When you're in Los Angeles, you can't imagine that life happens anywhere else. And then when I moved out of Southern California, I was like, oh, yeah, everybody's getting along fine.
There is an existence outside this
Yeah.
wild and crazy, good, bad, and ugly thing.
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Entity called Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Originally, I'm from Colorado, Denver metro area. Grew up there until 2001 when I moved out here. Actually, it was almost exactly 18 years ago. Spring of It actually snowed in Denver the day I left, and then I drove on out, meandered on out through the back roads of Colorado and Arizona, and landed here.
Colorado gave you a snowy goodbye.
It gave me a snowy and then sunny farewell. Actually,
yes. Well, that's very nice.
It snowed. It snowed the night before I left, and then in the morning it cleared up, and
you got to wake up to the fresh blanket of snow.
Yes.
Good. So, not that I want to get too far into it yet, but what brought you to Los Angeles?
The film industry.
Oh,
I figured. Yeah. Look at the pictures. Ooh. I wanted to get into the picture.
The moving business. Pictures, eh?
That's right. The talkies. So yeah, I got a degree in film at University of Colorado. Thought I was just gonna teach or something, and then I figured, well, I might as well give LA a shot just to say I did it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have high expectations, but I just had neutral, I guess, expectations. I wasn't a guy who ever thought I was going to move to LA.
Yeah, but you got to, I mean, especially if you study film, you got to give it a shot. You got to at least do it, or else you're going to question yourself forever.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I came out here and just happened to get into editing and sound design, and my life just ended up being here.
Cool. So it must have worked out okay then.
Not too shabby. Good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's right. Okay. Well, I can't wait to get caught up on all that. Now, just to give a kickoff here, to go even perhaps before you were a twinkle in your father's eye, you wrote and you said that your parents escaped Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, they use the word escaped.
Escaped. I went to school with someone whose parents escaped Romania, and I always thought it was very interesting. It's so foreign to an American person my age, of really anybody trying to escape a country.
Right, except maybe North Korea.
Yeah,
I don't know any North Koreans that have escaped. So.
That might be the modern example. So tell me about that. What's the story behind that?
Well, They 1968, the Soviets rolled in, and that didn't really the people there didn't really appreciate that,
Weren't
especially my
into it,
dad.
right?
They weren't into it. They weren't into Soviet tanks rolling into Prague. It just wasn't that cool. They thought this isn't cool.
Right.
No, so my mom, who was very young, and my dad, who was in his early 20s, decided we're out of here. So they got on some kind of tour bus that went through to Austria.
Mm-hmm.
And once they got into Austria, they just kind of said, "See ya," and they just left the tour bus. Which I guess 90% of the people who were on that bus left the tour bus,
Yeah.
and they escaped, or they just left, and then they went to the actually they first went to the Canadian embassy. Canada wasn't taking any people at that time. This was 1969 at this point, and so they thought somebody told them try South Africa.
Hmm.
So they were all set to go to South Africa, which would have been we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that would have been wild.
It would have been definitely wild. But they just happened to run into some uh, kind of Texan cowboy type guy just in the middle of Vienna, fortuitously, or was it? And he said, "Oh, USA is taking people. You just got to know somebody that maybe knows somebody that knows somebody, and I'll get you all set up, and we'll do this, and you can go to the good old US of A." So they thought, yeah, that sounds a lot. They didn't know anything about anything really, because the information in Czechoslovakia at that time was minimal,
Right.
except for maybe USA bad.
Yeah.
But my dad knew that that would have been the ultimate place to go, and my mom also. So they just said, all right. So they got the paperwork done, hung out in Vienna for 3 months. They had to stay there while everything was taken care of, and then they just got on a plane and flew to New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yep. And that's my dad and my mom and dad got off the plane and thought, oh wow, this is the United States, huh? First thing he did was he bought a 6-pack of root beer, because the only English he really knew was the word beer.
Uh-huh.
And Czechoslovakians are really into their beer.
Yeah.
So he when he got home, he poured a glass and thought, wow, they sure like their beer dark. He thought, nice head though. That's a nice head of foam on that. And then when he drank it, he spit it out, and he said he almost wanted to get on the plane and go back. Because he thought, if this is their beer, I cannot stay in this country.
That's funny. Your dad sounds like a funny guy.
He's awesome. He's actually giving a little teaser. He's actually part of the good ground that tilled me to become a Christian.
That's great. So you grow up, what is that? Is that considered first generation American? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I was born 3 years later, 1972, in New Jersey. The reason I say Colorado is my home is because 6 months later, they packed the car and moved to Colorado, Denver. So New Jersey is my birthplace, but I don't honestly remember.
Interesting. New Jersey didn't cut it for him. What did they give a reason for the move?
Yeah, I guess when they saw bullet holes in their windshield, they thought, you know what, this might not be the place I want to bring up my kid. They didn't live in a very nice part of Jersey. So to all the Jersey people, I'm not bagging on Jersey. They just happened to live in a very rough area.
Right.
And so my dad was very fond of the mountains and open spaces, which he grew up going to his grandma's in Slovakia, or it's now Slovakia, in the Tatra Mountains. So he had a place in his heart for mountains and stuff. So Colorado definitely has some of those.
That's interesting. Did now Czechoslovakia, was there any sort of unique experience being a first generation American with fresh off the boat Czechoslovakian parents? I mean, did you get any flack for that, or what was the experience growing up with that?
It was my first language.
Oh.
So when I was in preschool, I actually do remember when I was in preschool, there there was a moment where I started speaking to other kids, and they looked at me like I was speaking some kind of alien language,
That's funny.
which I was.
Yeah.
And for about a month, I didn't say a word. I just sat, off to the side and just observed. I was the observing kid.
The quiet, brooding
And
Eastern European.
right. And so when I got home one day, I just started speaking English nonstop. So I became bilingual.
You just learned it at preschool?
Yeah.
Just from being around?
Just listening and learning.
Wow.
So my mom and dad said I just started speaking English, and then at home we would still speak Slovak. It's because the country broke up and now it's Czech and Slovak. Mm-hmm. So we kind of fell on the Slovak side. Mm. So I would speak Slovak at home, and then in public I would speak English. And
Interesting. So you really kind of still lived a little bit of the immigrant experience.
Yes. And when we grew up, we were very we were very patriotic. We flew the stars and stripes out in front of our house.
Amen, brother.
But we still held our Czechoslovakian kind of heritage, and we hung out with a big Czechoslovakian community in Denver. So we would go out. They would have these things where they'd go to the mountains, and they would call it. They would have a big bonfire and camp and party and just have and all the kids would be around playing. So there was a lot of Czechoslovakians around my life.
Oh, and that's fun.
And my babičkas, where grandparents would come and visit also a lot, which one of them also is very crucial to my faith walk.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. It's I guess there would have been quite the influx of Czechs or Slovaks or Czechoslovakians at the time. So yeah, I mean, that's great. You got to keep the party going over here on this side of the pond.
Yeah. So it was a pretty kind of cool upbringing, because it was like, I already had a knowledge of geography at a very young age. And I already would make a drawing of USSR and USA in, kindergarten or first grade. And so that was obviously, teachers would kind of raise their eyebrow at that, saying, wow, this kid is smart. I just happened to know from being at home. It's not from just having parents that did that.
Yeah, you just had the experience. That's interesting. So were you guys, tell me a little bit about your faith upbringing.
So the faith was, we were essentially kind of Eastern Catholic. That's what I was baptized in, Eastern European Catholic, but it was more nominate. It wasn't necessarily, it was the Easter/Christmas deal,
like a cultural thing.
Yeah. Although,
is that like Eastern Orthodox, or is Eastern Catholic different?
It's Catholicism, but the Eastern Europeans, there were times where I would remember I would go to a mass and they would be still speaking Latin. So sometimes they do it in Latin, which I just completely didn't understand.
Yeah,
because I never learned Latin.
Yeah.
And it was cultural. It's basically Catholicism, where where a lot of older Eastern Europeans would practice it kind of culturally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I do remember my dad, and he had a picture of Jesus at what I later learned was at the Garden of Gethsemane praying. Are you hearing that?
No.
That ding?
All I hear is you, buddy.
Okay, good. Because I'm hearing it. I don't want it to interrupt the flow.
Oh, I appreciate your concern.
Oh,
don't get that pleasure. Every time.
So anyway, they would so Jesus was there. We watched in late 70s, there came this mini series called Jesus of Nazareth, which we watched, and I remember weeping when Jesus was crucified. So there was definitely Jesus was. I learned who he was, and it wasn't as though we were agnostic towards it. So there was definitely an influence there.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't. There wasn't really any practical practice. My parents, were kind of like these Eastern European yuppie hippie middle class kind of party. They would party and just kind of have a good time on weekends with all the other Czechoslovakians, and we would play. We were basically kind of just a middle class family that would go to church or go to mass, I guess, on Easter and Christmas. Although then when my grandma would come, my dad's mom, she's the one who would teach me how to pray. So she taught me just how to pray, just be thankful, pray to Jesus, to be thankful, pray for, other people. And so that was literally the sitting at the foot of the bed type praying.
Yeah.
That I started practicing that. So there was almost there started to become kind of a relationship with Jesus just in my own childlike mind. But there was no going to church, reading the Bible, although they did buy me a little record Bible that had kind of the cliff notes, and it was a comic book, but it was a record. I don't know if an LP. I'm dating myself now.
Like you'd listen to it.
It would be, yes, on vinyl. It would put on my little Fisher Price radio, and I would read along the comic book of Cain and Abel.
That is so funny.
Moses.
It's kind of like the greatest hits album.
It was. It was the greatest. So I knew the highlights, but that was all. So I suppose those were just the seeds that were planted. There was never really any honest. Let's go to church on Sunday and let's start really cracking open the Bible and really getting into the Word.
Yeah, sure. But you had, you were still young. You had time to develop.
That's right. And just in retrospect, when my dad and I talk now, he says he was pretty much agnostic growing up. He just kind of, it was more of a thing, an homage to his own mom who really loved Jesus.
Right.
He actually didn't necessarily, he kind of believed that when we died, you just died.
Yeah.
So he actually eventually, a guy at work actually really brought him into the faith later on in his life. So, but he was telling me that, yeah, when we were growing up, he wasn't really a believer, right, as far as anything real or concrete.
But you had your grandma.
Oh yeah, good old Babichka.
Good old Babichka.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So she kind of started you on that path. As far as the rest of your childhood goes, I mean, you sound like a young guy, but when did you? But you referenced vinyls, so
that's right. We're talking born in 1972.
Okay.
So childhood was kind of 1970s going into the 1980s.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, the pre-tech. The tech was Atari 2600.
Oh, yeah.
Or even Pong. Days. Yeah.
What kind of kid were you? Were you like a video game kid? Or?
I was kind of like a jack of all trades. I loved video games. I loved TV. I loved soccer. I loved just gallivanting around the neighborhood on bikes.
Yeah.
With like a little clan of kids.
Yeah, back when packs of feral children ruled the streets.
Yes. It was something glorious. Oh, those were the glory days. Yeah, it was a kind of a scamp, I guess. I was a pretty good kid. I was pretty athletic, but I also loved art. I loved drawing. I loved art. I loved TV shows. When I think back and the amount of TV that I watched, I'm wondering, where did I find time to do anything else? Which we did. It seemed like we were always outside, but I think we just watched a little bit of TV at night And then on snow days or times when, school would be canceled and you couldn't really do anything anyway, we would just watch TV and play Atari, and then maybe go outside and build a snow fort.
Oh yeah, snow forts are the best.
Oh yeah.
Did you have any siblings?
Eventually, I had when I was 8, going on 9. I remember I went to I believe was it first or second grade. I told my teacher my mom's getting me a brother. So I had a brother when I was 9 years old, and I was completely stoked because I was, even though I was an only child, but we had a unique situation where we lived on a street where there was a lot of kids. So I always had kids and friends around, but I just thought there would just be something so cool about having a little brother. So yeah, when my brother came around, I was just incredibly excited, and we actually ended up he ended up coming with me when I was a teenager to where I started skateboarding and stuff, and he was just my little kid brother that would tag along with us, and
Oh
he had
yeah,
he had his own little skateboard that was bigger than him.
little sidekick.
Yeah, he was the little sidekick, and all my friends were really they loved him. So
Really, that's
he kind of
cool. It wasn't
yeah.
like he was a punching bag or anything, huh?
No, but some of his friends were.
Ooh.
I feel badly for some of them. Like, we duct taped one of his friends to a tree. I mean, that's I really feel I'm really sorry.
Hey man, it was the 70s.
Sorry, skunk.
That's just what happens.
Yeah.
Or even the 80s I mean, everything I know from the early 80s is just from 80s movies, and yeah, a lot of people were getting duct taped to trees. It was just something that happened as a kid.
And yeah, we didn't really bat an eye. We just said, "Hey, this is how you're going to become a man."
Yeah, well, it sounds like a pretty fun childhood.
Yeah, it was cool.
Now, you mentioned you talked a little bit about your dad. What was your mom like?
She was very driven. She started off at a company called Mountain Bell, just as a low level employee in the warehouse. And Mountain Bell, she became a quality tester for the old analog phones systems, where you would try to break it and see how she was a quality tester, quality control. And then Mountain Bell became AT&T, and then she became a kind of higher level because she could speak 5 languages. She became kind of a liaison to different countries.
Oh, nice.
So she worked her way really far up that area, and then retired in the late 90s.
Whoa, good for her.
And moved to Mexico.
Moved to Mexico?
Yeah, she moved to San Jose del Cabo in Mexico. Old Mexico.
Oh yeah, that's a good place to party.
Yeah, so she's a very interesting lady. She definitely had a lot of drive. Like I said, spoke a lot of languages, and had a vision of what she wanted to do, and did it.
Yeah, and seemed like her vision did not include shoveling snow every winter.
No, she hated it. She was not a big fan of Colorado, that's for sure.
Now, so she did that in the 90s. So what, I guess maybe we can learn a little bit about where does that fall on the timeline? I mean, doesn't sound like your dad moved to Mexico.
No, they, when I was a junior in high school, they got divorced, which was somewhat shocking to me. I knew there were problems. I knew there were ruptures, but I guess I wasn't expecting full on divorce. And then in hindsight, it's kind of, I'm thinking maybe I was. And I didn't necessarily, I kind of just rolled with it, but I know that psychologically, based on what came after that, it was obviously, it affected me.
Yeah.
In different ways that I didn't think it was at the time.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, because I had kind of assumed we were kind of just the classic middle class family. Yeah, sure, there's arguments. Yeah, there's this and that, but I guess I wasn't expecting full board divorce, and then in hindsight, I'm thinking, wow, how did they last so long? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've talked to some people who kind of thought the same things. Like, at the time, it's incredibly traumatic, and certainly nothing to make light of. But then looking back, it's like, oh, wow, that totally probably could have happened sooner. They made it pretty far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. So in high school, I mean, that would have been in the later years of your parents' marriage.
Yeah.
Did
I
you
think I was about 17.
17? Were you starting to display some of the common symptoms of a child who has some parents who are getting close to that?
It seems like I would say at around 14 is when I started drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Just we'd have a beer, and I just, my dad actually had a refrigerator that was dedicated to having to beer.
Of course, not root beer.
No, the real deal.
He found what he was looking for. That's why he
Yeah,
stayed in America.
right. Yeah, he figured that one out pretty quickly.
That's funny.
And and that was kind of the culture of the Czechoslovakian group is they drank a lot of beer.
Uh-huh.
And so I didn't really think about it as anything wrong.
Yeah.
It was almost like, I'm about 14. I could start having a beer here and there.
Sure.
So that was when I kind of would just start having just a cold one, and then
were you sneaking it, or did you like have the blessing of your Czechoslovakian?
It was kind of like almost a tacit blessing. It was kind of like, yeah, you can have a couple, just don't take too many, or don't get drunk, or
right.
And if you do, don't leave don't leave or whatever. But
yeah, but you weren't getting grounded or something, or hiding it or something.
No, not really. But and it's not like I was just openly doing it. I was just kind of doing it.
Sure.
So, and my dad and I did go to Europe, back to Czechoslovakia in '86 together. And we did he did give me a beer in Austria, and we just sat there and drank a beer, and I thought, oh, okay.
Well, you got to have a beer while you're in Austria.
Yeah. So at that point I thought, yeah, there's no big deal. I think when it started to become a little bit more ramped up was, I think, when I was turning 15, 16, where I started, somebody would come by with a little bottle of vodka. Ooh, vodka. Ooh. And so we started drinking vodka and different other forms of harder liquor where I actually got drunk for the first time. And I remember thinking, wow, this is something else. I can kind of dig this feeling. I'm like,
at 15,
I'm like out on the tiles
relatively early. I mean, certainly not, I don't know, not the most unusual age, but probably a little earlier than usual.
Yeah. Especially I guess the volume picked up pretty quickly as far as it would be weekends. It started to just become, every weekend we're just going to drink and party.
Right.
And part of the reason it wasn't necessarily, I'm talking when I was 16, going into 17, there was where we lived on the suburbs of Denver, there was pretty much every weekend you could go to a high school party, and that was kind of the standard fare, is a keg party.
Yeah.
There was a lot of culture even of drinking just in Colorado in general at that time.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of part of that scene, except I think I took it to another level. I think I was almost sport drinking, like competition drinking.
Competitively. Yeah, well, you got to start that. You got to start that early if you want to make it to the pros while you're still in your prime.
Yeah, and I'm not sure there's a lot of money involved in the pros, but
nope.
There's a lot of glory, at least in your own mind.
Sure. So kind of like the masculine, drink is more than the other guy type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
how'd that work out for you?
Oh, it worked out great until it didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that tends to be how the story goes.
Yeah, it was maintainable. And I was actually I was still doing well in school. I did break my ankle when I was a sophomore in high school on a skateboard ramp. Imagine that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
that's
So what happened? Yeah.
that's what they're made
Imagine that.
for.
So I was 2 weeks in bedridden with a leg cast, and I realized, oh, you know what? This homework stuff isn't that hard, because I was a C/B student,
Yeah.
uh, and with those 2 weeks where I really started to get into the studying because I couldn't really do anything else. I realized, oh, this school thing's pretty easy, actually. So I actually became a better student from my sophomore to my senior year, and it was almost like I was kind of living this two-pronged life where I would just be this huge party guy, but I also wanted to be like the smart guy.
Hey,
Like, and
yeah.
yeah, and I started having heroes that, in hindsight were just kind of asinine, like, like Jim Morrison. Ooh, he was a genius. That guy, he could do all sorts of crazy drugs and booze.
Oh yeah.
What an idol, So I started seeing the mad geniuses as my idols, and so I started kind of modeling a little bit of my character on those types of people.
Of course, you're right at the age where you're trying to figure out who you want to be.
Yeah, indeed.
And Jim Morrison was your guy.
Yeah, it was pretty absurd. And so I started that actually, that led to smoking the grass,
The ganj,
the ganja,
the
the
chiba.
marijuana. So that led to a period where I was smoking a lot of marijuana, and it actually was cutting back on my drinking because the two don't really go hand in hand that well.
Yeah, or else unless you want to just be laying on the floor spinning.
Right, unless you really liked like merry-go-rounds that went way too fast. or this, if you were one of those kids that would love getting on the swing and like tightening it up and then spinning as fast as you can.
Right. Oh man, you just brought back some memories. Got my fingers pinched in that chain so many times trying to do that.
Oh yeah.
That's funny.
And then just stagger off into the sand.
It was bark in my days, and then you'd just get a face full of splinters when you.
Oh, bark. Why bark?
I don't know. I've been asking myself that for years. It was that weird period in American school system where they hadn't quite transferred over into like the shredded rubber.
Yes.
But it was after sand, and for some reason bark was like what they decided was the safest alternative. But that's for another podcast. That's for my American school system investigatory podcast.
Yes. I look forward to it.
Coming to iTunes near you.
It's going to be a hit.
So you started chiefing the ganj, as the cool kids say in Colorado.
Oh yeah. Yep. And so the drinking kind of tapered off, but the ganj picked up, and then that led to the good old LSD.
Kicked it into high gear. Okay.
Yeah, one day, Chinchilla, our local neighborhood drug dealer.
That is the perfect name for a drug dealer.
Yeah, he kind of looked like David Lee Roth with this giant head of hair, and for some reason we just called him the Chinchilla.
Oh my gosh, what great branding for a drug dealer. He struck gold with that branding.
Yeah, and he had a thing on his what did he have on the back of his Jeep? He had like a Darth Vader Jeep that was just tinted really black, and when you went inside there were these crazy disco type lights. We called it the Darth Vader ship. I think on the back it said bad attitude.
Your whole experience is an 80s movie, and I'm loving it.
Oh yeah, it just goes into Stranger Things. But
Oh,
yeah, it's the he came by one day and he just said, "Hey man, got some tabs." And we said, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, I got some acid." I said, "Oh, all right. I don't never really done that." So a friend of mine, my good buddy Josh, and we bought some and we ended up doing it that night, and it was definitely mind and life altering. I'll
yeah.
just put
Did
it that way.
did Chinchilla do it with you? Did he
No,
shaman you? No, he just he
he
just
just had some spare stock and asked if we wanted to try it.
took your money and sent you off into the night
Yeah,
to explore the psychedelic cosmos on your own.
indeed.
Nice.
And that was definitely paradigm shifting for me. So
Interesting. Tell me about that.
it was it basically was um well, initially we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't if you didn't have somebody telling you.
Yeah, because it comes with it's just a tiny little piece of paper that's no, I mean, it's very unassuming.
Right.
It's not like a case of beer or a bottle of vodka or a
Right.
bag of weed. It's
Huh.
basically just this very unassuming tiny little piece of
You
paper
could
that's
sneeze and you'd lose it forever.
right. And it doesn't come on right away.
Hmm.
It basically affects you after about half an hour, where you don't really know if you took anything. You just think, oh, maybe that was bomb. Maybe that's not. Maybe we didn't get maybe he ripped us off, or we just didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
And then after about half an hour, we started feeling butterflies. And then it just started to become this thing where we started laughing, and I thought I started hearing audibly things and perceiving things in my line of sight. I thought the patterns on the floor were starting to manifest. Geometric patterns were starting to manifest,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden we just started bubbling up as though something wanted to explode forth through in us, and we just had to run outside, and we just started laughing hysterically, like we were lunatics essentially. And then I do remember outside thinking, wow, there's phantoms around. I remember
Mm.
I continuously out of the corners of my eyes would see what I would now describe as shadow people, I guess.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, I just thought, oh, there's phantoms lurking about. And then I found that hilarious. Like everything was kind of funny, and it was like Alice in Wonderlandy.
Yeah.
Um, and everything became vibrant. Everything became more, I guess, more alive than alive. And there was a very childlike feeling to everything. Everything had wonder in it.
Hmm.
Everything had a newness, a freshness. Uh, it felt as though I were a kid again, and everything just felt very playful.
Yeah.
So that was, and that lasted for 8 hours. We basically were up the entire night, um,
Playing.
yeah, playing around on my house on this very powerful drug. And then when we came down, it wasn't like a hangover or a foggy brained feeling. It was very much like uh, there was a sense of kind of bewildered wonderment, I guess, or a sense of awe. Like I felt there was a sense of the sun had risen. We actually watched the sunrise,
Yeah.
and we just kind of eased out of it, and we thought, wow, that was very unique, powerful experience. And I would call it spiritual, because at that point that was a very, what I would call, spiritual experience too.
Yeah.
Or and it didn't leave me with a hangover, which
A
booze
definite
off.
plus. You get to
Right.
play all night. You got all sorts of energy. You see the sunrise. You're a child again. And you
Yeah.
feel, well, tired, but you're not puking in the morning.
No, exactly. So that kind of opened the door to what would become a very very let's see, not turbulent, but definitely a lengthy relationship that ended up in lots of turbulence, and even more than turbulence, but a crash landing with LSD.
Oh, really? You were hooked. You were on the LSD train.
Yeah, I became what I later thought I made up the term psychonaut. And then I actually looked it up on Google like 5 years ago, and it's actually a thing that is the exact definition of what I thought I'd made up.
Very popular term.
Right.
But maybe you received it during that times.
Which is not the first and only thing I would have received.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting because people who do kind of not just take LSD once or twice or whatever, but really really love the experience and continue to make that a part of their life in one way or another. They seem to be searching people. Like they're searching for something and they find it in that, whether it's, maybe they're spiritually inclined or something like that. I mean, did that kind of awaken something in you? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it definitely awakened a somewhat of what I would call a spiritualistic seeking. Yeah, when you said the word seeking, that's what it became.
Yeah.
And so I started reading into like what shamans do.
Yeah.
I started getting into kind of the doors of perception, which harkens back to the Jim Morrison.
Right.
I even read the guy Albert Hoffman's My Problem Child, the guy who actually found and quasi invented LSD was a Swiss chemist who accidentally stumbled upon it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story.
Yeah,
actually.
And he rode his bike and he started tripping.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the guy who invented it took a whole like tablespoon's worth and tried to ride his bike home.
Yeah,
and just for people who may not know, a tablespoon's worth of LSD is about, I don't know, maybe 20,000 times the dose that people take at a regular time.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah. From the story I heard, he just like disappeared for 3 days. Nobody saw him.
Yeah, I know that he definitely had a wild trip, and he wrote not extensively, but he wrote a book called LSD, My Problem Child.
Oh, interesting.
Which I read, and what's funny is he said, this drug is very powerful and it can do he said he was trying to tout the positive possibilities of it, but he was also saying we need to take it cautionary, we need to be cautionary with it, and this and that. It shouldn't just be used for fun and games. And I said I agree with him exactly. And I thought I was kind of...
You're a psychonaut, man.
Right. I am a professional. Yes. I'm not like those hippies and, crazy people who like to stare at lava lamps.
LSD is serious business.
That's right. So I kind of became, I don't know, not pompous, but kind of a little elitist, I suppose.
Yeah, you took it seriously.
I did. And I took it a lot.
What do you mean a lot? Give me.
I started to eventually buy lots of it, which a lot is 100 hits. And I would just sell half of it to make my money back to friends, just at cost, so I could just recoup whatever I paid for it, and then the rest I would store in my freezer and just take every other day for weeks.
Every other day. So you had a routine.
Yeah.
Take one, have a recovery day, and then go again.
Right. And then I would take breaks, and then I would do it again. So there was quite a bit.
And you were experimenting with dosages, I'm assuming?
Dosages and even different types that I would get maybe 2 different types and take them together. And I would go to school. I would talk to my mom while I was on. I was basically just on it And my whole shtick was I don't want anyone to I was almost kind of like acting as though I were some kind of covert operative.
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to be in society and no one's going to have any clue that I'm on this drug.
Functional, a functional psychonaut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only guy that you would know that I was on it was one of my good friends, John, who was an artist and he also tripped quite a bit with me, but he always knew, because he always said there was this imperceptible or this slightly perceptible grin that I had on my lips. That only he
sounds like an artist, John.
Yes. So he would always know when I was on it, but nobody else really did.
Yeah, okay. Now, I mean, what were the results of that? Did you ever have any bad trips, or was it a consistent experience? I mean, were there some emergencies?
I started to realize I could do anything on it. I started to skateboard while I was on it, and I would invent I would forget which way I rode. So I would do tricks both ways, and riding goofy and regular. For those who aren't in the milieu, you can ride with your left foot in front or your right foot in front. Yeah. And I could ride both ways.
Wow, you became
almost equally
ambidextrous.
Right. And I started inventing just very strange but cool tricks. Stairs didn't seem as big to me anymore. So I would ollie down big sets of stairs without really thinking twice about it.
Wow.
And then snowboarding, it was the same thing. And then I started creative writing, and I realized I could write some very interestingly trippy stuff while writing with pen and paper.
Yeah.
So the creative writing part really, really became. I really thought, wow, this is just opening new dimensions of writing, even.
Of creativity.
And then it was just and then creativity, and then exploration just into different dimensions of being. It was very everything was very new and dynamic, and I thought everything was just. And I wasn't. The other part too is by this point I had already known that I kind of had a drinking problem. This is when I'm 17, 18.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I don't even like to drink while I'm on this stuff. I actually frowned upon it. I actually, when I would interact with drunks, I thought, wow, these people are buffoons. Right. And I'm thinking, why would I want to be like that?
Yeah, you had a whole new perspective on everything.
So it was kind of my new thing. And but what happened was it started to make me kind of weird.
No kidding.
I don't think I was weird. I'm not weird. You all are weird. You guys are the ones who are, getting in your cars and driving to mundane. It was just
spending your lives working for the man.
Right. It was. I did become kind of a weird. And I remember one day I was by this point I was already in college at University of Colorado, and I was at a creative writing class. The teacher was a grad student. Guy was awesome. And one day I think I said something in class, and he just looked right at me and he goes, "You're out there, man." And I go, "Oh, he knows. And he actually did try to warn me a little bit. He kind of tried to take me under his wing and warn me. So
maybe you were going a little overboard.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And, especially as I'm sure you might be aware, the whole trend with microdosing and, through the trip I did and the subsequent reports from Burning Man I did with Carl Tykrib and those guys, there's a big psychonaut resurgence, and even bringing it into the professional sort of areas of economics and technology and stuff like that. So you were ahead of the curve, man.
I was definitely on the vanguard, and I got shot up.
You've there's this thing looming, this crash looming. I mean, what was I don't want to skip anything, but I'm so interested.
Yeah, there were warning signs that were I was just blasting through the warning. There were times I would come home or I would be at home and I would turn on the TV while in mid trip, and there were these late night anti-drug ads that would come on.
Uh
Gee, I wonder why they're at 2 a.m. The only,
huh.
the only. So there was one that was "This is your brain on LSD,"
That's so
and I
funny.
remember or "This is your brain on drugs," and it was a fried egg or something like that, and I thought,
Right.
ha ha ha. Like I just laughed at these fools. They don't know what they're talking about. Um, and I actually did read parts of Revelation while I was on acid, which was very um, interesting.
Yeah.
That's where I actually concocted what I thought I had received was the alien Jesus whole
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
So this was, and there was a big kind of alien type thing that was trying to imprint itself on my brain. That the
Yeah.
alien,
I was going to ask, like, this being a sort of a spiritual journey for you, what in particular was kind of the spirituality that you were inheriting from this?
it was a hodgepodge of philosophy. I started reading a Nietzsche,
Mm-hmm.
which he has a book called The Antichrist. So, he, it was very much this thing where, oh, beyond religion.
Right.
Religion is all just this man-made artifice that tries to keep us enslaved. But there is a real spirituality that operates on a higher level, and only certain people can achieve it. When I hear people like Carl Teichribb and other people that really have really parsed this out, it's almost like I was getting the proto blueprints of you're special. You can do a lot of acid. You're special.
Right, right. You were designed for this.
Right. So there
Yeah.
was almost the leading into, like, I knew there was something around the corner. There's something around the corner and I'm going to find it. I
Yeah.
know there's a spirituality, and it blends all east and west. It's above that. They've only touched a part of one side of the diamond.
Yeah. And you said
I
that
want the whole
a
diamond.
lot of the alien stuff too, you're getting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're talking, this is 1991 and 2. So I wasn't in contact with anything like ancient aliens, which didn't really exist, or any of that stuff. This was stuff that was actually being downloaded, I guess, to me out of nowhere. It wasn't as though I was reading aliens are here type books.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually, it was stuff that it was manifesting in my mind. So, and
Yeah.
then one
So
day
you
there was
were kind of receiving it.
right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, yeah. And it was very kind of, I guess it felt very organic, as
Mm.
though I were discovering it, I guess.
Right. Right.
But I was discovering it with the facilities of my mind and my deeper soul or whatever,
Yeah.
by perceiving these other dimensions through this thing called acid.
Did you
Which
have, I mean, now that's everywhere. There's really whole systems built around that, and there's whole
right.
Groups of people you can get together with. Did you have a group that you were talking to about this, or were you flying solo the whole time?
I was kind of going solo, man. I had a couple close buddies that kind of did like John, my friend, my artist buddy John did quite a bit of acid too. So we would kind of parse stuff ourselves. We would go like hiking up into the foothills on acid and kind of just banter about stuff.
Yeah.
He wasn't necessarily at the same area where I was. He was more as a artistic explorer. He was more into artistic exploration.
Right.
So there was what they called the Rainbow Family Gathering.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine said, "Hey, you want to go to the Rainbow Family Gathering on the 4th of July? It's in the middle of the mountains in Colorado, just a couple hours south of Aspen. It was going to be a huge one. One of the I guess every 20 years or something they have, or every 10 years, I don't know. They have a giant one where everybody comes from around the world and gathers there. So I thought, you know what? Maybe that's where I'll find out what's really happening.
Yeah, find your people.
Right, because there was a guy a couple weeks prior to me, my friend who invited me to go to that. I was reading Nietzsche. I was reading Nietzsche on campus at CU, and this guy came up to me out of the blue and he said, "You're reading Nietzsche?" I said, "Yeah." He said he knew what was up. He was he knew that there was the ultimate reality and that the mothership was going to land, and you got to go to the Rainbow Family Gathering to find out what he's really talking about. It was something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words, but he was. I remember he used the word mothership, and I remember he used something to the effect of he knew what was up and Rainbow Family. So when my friend, a week or two later said, "Hey, Rainbow Family," I thought, "Oh yeah, this is serendipitous. This is confirmation.
Yeah.
This means I need to go." So we went, and it was a big bust.
Really?
Yeah, again, I felt like an outsider, I guess, because I don't know. It was interesting. There were people, you would just walk by some guy with a walking staff and hiking boots, just buck naked, and he's just not batting an eye. Just, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Nice.
So
And then there were
it
these.
was what? It was more of just like a music festival.
No, it's a
feeling,
bunch
or?
of kind of real, true kind of. I don't want to use the word derogatorily, but like granola hippie type people,
Yeah.
just kind of getting together and smoking dope and tripping acid and having like a big circle at the end of the thing. But
Really?
it wasn't very. Yeah, it was. There were these feral girls that were also naked running in the hills, and they looked like the Bacchae or something from ancient Greece. Like they were just like feral animals running in the hills, running wild.
Whoa.
And like now that when I think back, I think, man, these girls were possessed. They had that grin. They had this grinning, possessed look on their faces.
Right.
And then there were just a lot of hippies, but they were kind of. It was almost like they knew we didn't belong, because I went with my buddy who's a dreadlocked Jewish kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then his buddy at work, who's a blue collar Hispanic guy with a wife and kid, who's just like a blue collar dude.
Kind of a motley bunch there.
Yeah, I don't think we didn't even really fit into their little thing, but we just wanted to see what the whole, what it was all about. They didn't even trust us enough to want to barter acid with us.
Ah.
Like they must have thought we were feds. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel it was kind of a big letdown.
Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't see the mothership. There's no mothership either. There was just a lot of poop at the end.
Oh no.
Because it was just thousands and thousands of people out in this field, and the minimal porta potties they brought just couldn't handle the volume.
Right.
And it was just kind of trash. They kind of left it trashy.
Oh,
it was almost.
That's very interesting. It wasn't the enlightened gathering that you were expecting.
No, it was kind of dirty. It was kind of dirty and just kind of like grungy type. Like I just left kind of feeling gross.
Yeah. So then, you didn't find what you were looking for.
Not there.
Yeah.
No. And then a couple weeks later, the big crash trip occurred.
Oh, crash trip.
Yeah. So in my first, in college, I started hanging out with this guy who was he was a math major. He was a huge pot smoker, LSD head. He was into computer programming. He was a grad student, and he was in my creative writing class, but for some reason we started hanging out. And he was a pretty trippy dude. He was the type of guy who was really into kind of, I want to say wizardry type stuff and progressive rock, but you wouldn't have noticed by how he looked or carried himself. He was just kind of a math nerd.
Wait, how does wizardry and progressive rock? How are those two things connected?
I don't know, but those were his. He was really into progressive rock, like King Crimson, and he was into. He had an ancient broadsword, and he really loved.
Okay, so he's
occultic type stuff.
Got it. So some pewter statues of wizards and dragons with maybe a little gem in there.
Right.
Okay, I know the type.
I mean, I would say eclectic though, because he also would have Japanese paintings, like he was into medieval type things, and he was like I said, he was a sophisticated computer programmer too.
Yeah, okay. So he's kind of on his own journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember he had told me one time when he was tripping, he was from Rhode Island, and this was in Boulder, but he was telling me about one of his friends that he had tripped with who ended up committing suicide. And I just remember thinking, oh, that's it's one of those stories that, like campfire stories, like, oh yeah, I had a friend that we used to trip together and he committed suicide.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that I end up at this guy's house one night where all I wanted to do was go to the mountains and hike. I was on 3 different types of acid, and a friend of mine said, let's stop at this math guy's house and see if he wants to go. And I remember thinking, oh man, he's not going to want to go. We're just going to end up sitting in his living room smoking copious amounts of marijuana and listening to progressive rock. And I didn't want to do that. I was already kind of starting to come on to a very, very strong trip, and my whole plans were dashed.
Yeah, you get stuck in the trap.
Yeah, so we ended up at his house, and he said, yeah, we'll go, but can we just wait a few minutes and just chill? So while we were in his living room, we obviously ended up smoking some pot, and by this point, the 3 different types of acid I were on was kicking in.
Your alchemic concoction.
Right. So I excused myself to the restroom, and at that point, I remember hearing my friend's voices inside my own head, saying, "Should we tell him? I don't know. I don't know if he's ready."
Oh no.
I think he's ready.
Oh gosh, this is making me paranoid just hearing about it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, I knew it. This is it. This is the moment I've been waiting for. It didn't happen at the Rainbow Gathering. This is where it's going to happen. I'm going to be illuminated. They must already know or be part of this illuminated club.
Interesting. Swordman is going to get you into the club.
Yeah. And
wow.
My first thought was, wow, they've harnessed the ability to telepathically communicate.
Oh, wow.
So I was already thinking, wow, they're already telepathically communicating. So I walked out of the bathroom with this huge grin on my face, kind of like, yeah. And at that point, the entire evening just went way sideways. As far as what happened, as far as how it would look on video, I have no idea. It would definitely be very weird. As far as what happened in my own mind, they basically somehow, I got into my brain that no, this is kind of an initiation, but you're really just a tiny little creation that we've made as an experiment. And we're telling you this right now, and the game is up now. Now that you know this, you might as well, this whole thing might as well end. And we are higher level interdimensional beings, and you're kind of like not a holograph or a some kind of created just little experiment.
Yeah.
And your whole life has just been one big experiment, and everything is a facade, essentially. your entire life is a facade. You're the only thing that really exists as far as this experiment, and that's it. And
And
I remember
you were
what's
hearing this, or you were
this was
feeling
all
this?
happening, yeah, telepathically.
Oh no.
And I was trying to talk to them, and then they would, as soon as I would speak out loud, they would kind of I don't know, they would just start saying, "Oh, dude, are you okay?" So to me, I'm thinking, I'm all right. Maybe this isn't real, and then all of a sudden it would say, "No, this is real," in my mind. So
Whoa.
yeah, and essentially the entire so this was going on for a long. So I started asking a lot of questions, like, "Well, wait, what about Jesus?" And I remember when I asked that question in my mind, obviously, I looked at the math guy, and he just gave me a blank stare.
You asked that out loud to the math guy? What about
That
Jesus?
that part I don't remember if it was out loud or in my mind,
Oh no.
but I remember the impression I got was they were trying to convince me that Jesus was just also manufactured. There was no answer though. It was kind of like, yeah, you can figure that one out for yourself. But they were trying to, they were almost like there was an implication of, oh yeah, that's all a fraud too.
Oh,
This is all a
interesting.
fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah, your entire life's a fraud. Everything is basically like Truman Show or something, where your whole life has just been this kind of experiment that we just wanted to see what would happen. And
Yeah.
then they said, so you might as well end it now.
Oh.
And because now there's nothing, you're going to go back into the world and you're going to just realize everything's fake. Why even bother living now?
Yeah.
And it was almost, oh, there's going to be the dog.
Oh, dog time.
She's barking at the phantoms.
So yeah, so whoever was talking to you, I mean, they had an agenda, which was to get you to end it.
Yeah. At a certain point, I remember thinking, this is it. This is like some kind of weird sacrifice. And I thought, wow, who would have thought my life would have ended this way? And I do remember at one point, the math guy was hovering above me with his broadsword, and he had, I think, Beethoven's Ninth playing.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I remember just yelling, like, no, can't do it. Not going to do it. I got to say bye to my brother. Like, before I go, I got to say goodbye to my little brother.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's kind of how the night ended, is with me coming down. And I remember hearing, like, well, a lot of times they like to watch the movie Excalibur. So we watched the movie Excalibur, which
Swordman, of course, just loves loves the movie Excalibur.
Right.
That is so funny.
So as we're driving back to my house in the morning, my friend that I had originally come with is driving, and he said, "Man, that was demonic."
Whoa.
And I just said, "Yeah, I don't know what that was." But at that point, I had pretty much just had a complete psychotic break with reality.
Wow, totally. And you don't know how much of this you were saying out loud, or how much was in your mind, or what they were privy to, or...
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I think a lot of it seems in my mind's eye that it was in my mind.
Yeah.
And then I would try to talk out loud, and at that point everything would kind of shut down.
Now, was your homie on acid too, or was it just you?
He was not. Although I think he might have taken a little bit.
Yeah, but not your patented functional psychonaut experiment you were running.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been pretty trippy for those dudes.
I'm imagining that it was. And so I don't know, my kind of theory that I've crafted, and what somebody else told me was, oh, you were mind bleeped by a warlock. So I
Oh.
think what happened was I think Math Man was a warlock,
Oh, I
and
mean, that
and
makes
he
sense.
and he was doing some kind of strange ritual that maybe he didn't even expect it to go where it did. Maybe he was just messing with me. I don't know what his exact intentions were,
Yeah.
but
Did you ever talk to that guy again?
I did, yeah, a little bit. I
Yeah.
remember when he finally graduated, we would actually hang out every now and then, and every by this point I was very shut down. I was no longer the happy-go-lucky psychonaut.
Because of that experience?
Oh yeah,
Wow. So that
yeah,
really changed everything.
yeah. For a good 4 or 5 years, I had no idea what was real. I mean, as far as am I just this thing living in a Truman show, or is this, am I just being messed with by interdimensional entities that run this whole thing? Well, I would still hear at this point it opened up to voices in my mind. um, when I would go to sleep, there would just be cacophonies of voices that were just completely full of mockery and ridicule.
Yeah.
uh, Heavy duty, always, they always wanted me to just uh, seems like the target was, oh, you should just kill yourself. That was always the logical conclusion of what needed to be done. So
Wow. So the voices continued. Did you continue to take LSD?
I did a few times.
Yeah.
There were a few times where I thought I need to know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I could see wanting to go back and find some answers or maybe hope for them to start talking
Clarification.
again and they're like, "Oh, we were just messing with you."
Right. Exactly. That was like my wish. And it was
Wow.
just it wasn't it was just opening the same doors up of wow, this is all.
So you were hearing voices and stuff even when you were not on LSD.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So this
Yes.
became, I mean, that's a lot. That's
Mhm.
a lot to deal with.
Yeah. I even started it got to the point where the next semester I couldn't go to school. I couldn't function in class properly because I thought somehow there was a trigger sound of coughing, of all things, that ended up triggering me. So anytime I started hearing coughing, I thought it was somebody uh, directly influencing my mind to try to mess with me. So, and everyone coughs everywhere. So
Yeah.
it so
No,
I
what an
became
unfortunate
misophonic.
trigger.
I know. So there was this total weirdness of that happening at school too. So, and then finally I broke down and told my mom what had happened. I came clean. I said, Mom, I've been doing acid for 5 or 3 years, and I had a bad trip, and I'm just really messed up in my mind now. So she did the only thing she could think of was, well, let's go see a psychiatrist. So I went and started seeing a psychiatrist, and at first it seemed okay. All right, I'm talking about this. How much do I want to tell him? And then finally, he got to the area where he starts talking about suicidal ideations and thoughts, and I thought, yeah, yeah, I've thought about suicide. Yeah, like, have you thought about how you would carry it out? And I thought, yeah, yeah, kind of. And he said, well, I think you need to be institutionalized.
Oh.
And I thought, he's like, it'll be just a good little getaway for you. And I thought, all right, I guess that sounds cool. Maybe it'll be like, I'll pretend like I'm Jack Nicholson in Cuckoo's Nest and just make kind of a joke about it. That didn't happen. There was no Nurch Ratchet.
Wow, so you went into you I mean, you were hardcore institutionalized. Like Jack
Yeah,
Nicholson.
yeah, it was definitely crazy. Uh,
Interesting.
so at that point, they basically, I went into a little room with a psychiatrist lady who started giving me a Rorschach. The Rorschach is the ink blot test.
Yeah.
And a lot of my answers were, oh, that looks like a demon. A lot of them looked like demons to me.
Oh.
So, and then at one point, she started just asking me nominal questions like, what's your name? this and that. And then she asked, what's the date? And all of a sudden I felt the whole room, the air came out of the room, and it was almost like everything came closing in, and on top of her forehead, an eye, like a third eye, basically manifest itself.
What?
And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I heard her voice inside my mind, and I had just this I think I'm totally screwed grin on my face. And then everything just went back to normal, and she said, "It's okay. It's okay. It's not okay, but it is okay." Those were her words. And
What?
I thought, I'm screwed. I felt like I was a spider in a web.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah. So that was I thought, this is it. I'm done. This is where I'm going. This is where they got me. And so they just started punching me up full of Thorazine. And
Like,
then
was she saying that in response to something you said, or just
no, because I couldn't answer what day it was.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I felt as though there was a mental oppression inside my mind, as though I were being invaded in my mind.
Oh my gosh.
And then she pulled out and she said, "It's okay. It's not okay, but it's okay." So how I perceived it was, oh, she knows that I know that something's up. She knows that
Yeah.
I know that she's not exactly who she says she is. That was how I perceived it at that time.
Right. Oh my
So
gosh, it's terrifying.
yeah, it was basically just like a psychodrama nightmare that
Yeah,
I'd never anticipated would happen in my life.
and you had just spent a bunch of time trying to figure out if what you had seen and heard was real and what the answers were, and then you get
Right.
institutionalized to try to get help. Ah! And then
Oh yeah.
therapist lady gets a third eye, and ah!
And
How-
then they punt me full of Thorazine and
Full of-
send me into the day room where there's a bunch of drooling derelict people, and they're basically saying, "Okay, here's your project," and they gave me a pair of I picked a pair of moccasins, which was supposed to take the whole 2 to 3 weeks, and I was still able to make them in one day. And
just like a little leather kit or something. Yeah.
And it was very strange, because the lady in charge of that, she said, "That's very good. That's very good. Now let's find something else for you to do." And I remember thinking, "Oh, I think they're going to try to make me into a drooling derelict." That was my thought at that point.
Interesting. What a very specific thing to remember.
And so I remember there was a voice a different voice. It was almost that calm, still voice that came into my mind that said, "Get out of here. Like, you got to get out of here."
Like, escape?
Uh-huh. So about 2 weeks in, I saw an opportunity and I took it. I basically, they were coming in, the breakfast carts were coming in, and the two ladies at the front.
Wait, hold on. Before you get into that, before you tell, so for 2 weeks, you knew you were going to try to escape.
No, this was about a week in.
Okay.
After about a week in is where I heard that voice tell me, like, "You got to get out of here."
Yeah.
So probably about 4 or 5 days after that. Yeah, it was about 2 weeks total that I was in there.
And so you were, started keeping an eye out for an opportunity?
As best as I could, yeah.
Were there any opportunities that did you like try or were about to escape at any point that were foiled or anything?
No.
Okay. You saw your moment 5 days later and took it.
Yeah. Okay. It was the front doors were open, and this was a wing inside of a larger hospital in downtown Denver. And so luckily I was able to still wear sweatpants and, a hoodie. And I still actually had my college ID, which at that time was good for Denver and Boulder for riding the bus. So when the breakfast came in, the two front door ladies that were at the front desk basically got distracted by something. I don't know what. So there was just two open doors and basically nobody there. So I slipped out took the elevator very nonchalantly out into the open and just at that point I just started jogging, and I just looked like any jogger because I was wearing sweatpants.
Yeah. So there was just an open door.
Yeah, they had the doors open.
And nobody guarding it, you didn't have to sneak, you didn't have to pull any Tom Cruise climbing through air vents. Just a door was open and he walked through it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, I don't, as far as I remember, I don't think I was in there. Like, they didn't send an APB or anything. It wasn't as though I think they were just strongly suggesting that I stayed there.
Yeah.
But
because you had checked yourself in.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking they're trying to make it so it's very hard for me to get out. Because even my mom and dad at this point were kind of questioning what they were doing. Because when they would come to visit, I was kind of just drooling, and I was like a pair of eyeballs with a tongue hanging out of my mouth.
Yeah, well, and you're all doped up on Thorazine.
Yeah. So that's when I knew that something's up with this place. And subsequently, I can't remember, 5 or 6 years later, I remember seeing on the local news that they had closed that wing down because of some strange ongoing, like they weren't quite above the board. Something was going on in that place. That's all I know. So they actually shut down the psychiatric wing of that place.
So you're jogging away from the psychiatric wing that was later closed down.
Then I ended up going to my dad's. So
you just jogged there?
No, I took the bus.
Oh, okay.
I jogged to the bus station and bussed it to my pop's house. And then we got to his place, and I drank a few beers and told him all about it.
Wow. And you told him everything. You told him about the seeing eye lady and the...
I didn't disclose that part.
Okay.
I just told him I think they were really trying to drug me up to the point where I think they were trying to keep me there.
Yeah, well, I'm in the past, at least, those places get supplements from the government, so they get money just for keeping people drugged up and keeping them alive.
It's a beautiful
That's our system.
job.
That's our system, folks.
That's right.
Mental institutions and prisons.
That's right.
You get money for just keeping people there.
People.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I was gonna say, I think you might be the first psychiatric wing escapee on the show.
Cool.
Yeah. So nice one.
Awesome.
I find on this show that pretty much on every episode somebody breaks some sort of record or is some sort of first. So many people think that my story's just like everybody else's story, but there's always something that I've never heard before, and I believe, I hope I'm not incorrect on this, I believe you're the first psychiatric ward escapee. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I had to at least match Shiloh's jumping out of a car at 55.
Stabbing a guy in the face with a beer bottle and jumping out of a car. Yeah, that was a doozy too. This has been a pretty intense couple episodes for me, guys.
God bless you, Shiloh. I'm praying for you.
Oh, we're all praying for you, Shiloh. We're all on Shiloh's team.
That's right.
So you escape, you tell your dad all about it. I mean, where do you go from there? How do you start rebuilding from that?
With me at that point, it was drinking.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Good old.
Just going back to your first love.
Booze. Yeah. It kind of helped drown the voices out a little bit. And it worked for a little while.
Oh, so you were still hearing the voices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And
now go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, did the Thorazine help anything? Did it?
No.
No, you're still hearing the voices, and
all it did was make me inside my own mind, and I couldn't necessarily control my motor skills. It was almost like I was just this pair of eyeballs inside of a flesh suit.
Oh, interesting.
But the thoughts were still there.
Oh gosh.
It was almost like
I could see how the people who maybe researched and put Thorazine into play, man, yeah, just got rid of your motor skill. That is just the perfect concoction to just keep people sitting in the day room all day and
Yeah,
can't do anything about it.
working on your
Make
working
another
on your
another
make another
pair of
pair.
moccasins.
Which I did actually keep. I did actually have those for a while. They were pretty sweet moccasins.
Did you escape in your moccasins running?
No, I
Oh
luckily had
man.
a pair of shoes.
That would be in the movie version. In the
Yes.
movie version, you would have made the moccasins, walked
Yep.
out the door, and jogged away in your moccasins.
That's
I'll
right.
remember that.
I like it.
Hey, you're in the movie business. I forgot about that. Okay, here we go, buddy. We're gonna do it together.
I like it.
Okay, I don't want to get too far off track, but so you got back. Your good old friend Boozy was quieting down the voices a little bit.
Yeah, he was my friends were kind of thinking, oh, Pete's kind of back. Cool. There was still a little edge around, but I was kind of back to being at least somewhat social. So it was a very precarious kind of dance I was doing with my sanity and what was going on. So I started doing Tai Chi. I started studying Buddhism and Taoism and a little bit of Hinduism and any other kind of buffet spirituality that I could kind of pick and choose to try to make sense of perhaps what was going on.
Yeah.
And so there was kind of that whole element. I tried meditating and that didn't work. But Tai Chi seemed to kind of help because it was kind of an exercise, and I've always loved exercising anyway.
Yeah.
Be it through activities like skating or whatever, to even just regular exercise. So I thought, all right, this will work. This is kind of, I think, what's going to help me. So it kind of did for a little while, and then it was just, like I said, it was just kind of a fine balancing act of just me. I was just kind of meandering for 5 years, just really trying to keep it together. Every now and then there would be points where I would start to feel like suicide was the option, but then I remember thinking to myself, 'cause I was really into chess. I still love chess. That there's a thing I used to say is you can't put yourself into checkmate. Like that's an illegal move.
Oh yeah, interesting.
So that actually saved me a few times where I thought, nope, not going to put myself in checkmate.
Wow. That's just, oh my gosh, man, this movie's writing itself.
It is.
What a cool, like, philosophical sort of Chekhov's gun you'd put in there.
Right.
You start out by liking chess, and it's the thing that saves your life.
Which going back to my my 9 years younger brother, he's the one who taught me how to play chess when he was in elementary school. He was like a chess whiz when he was in elementary school.
Wow.
So tack one up for my brother, Steve.
Good job, Steve.
Yeah. So there were definitely times where I was on the brink, and then there were times I would argue with these higher level beings that claimed that this was all just some kind of holographic testing ground for me. I'd say, all right, well then you end it. Just stop the program.
Oh, interesting.
Do it. Why do I have to do it? Screw you. You do it. And they didn't, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. What an interesting concept. Actually, talking back or asking questions to those voices.
Yeah. So that was they never did. They never ended the program.
Yeah.
So there was
all
yeah,
talk,
there was,
man. They're all talk.
So yeah, meantime my mom did send me to this one old man. He wasn't, I don't know what he was. He was just a guy that practiced some form of therapy in his house. And he didn't say a whole lot. I went to his house. It was just like an old man house with books and maybe a smell of pipe tobacco.
Uh-huh.
And he said, what did he say? He said something like, you're not a bad person. what you did was bad, but you're not a bad person. And I thought, okay, cool. And then he handed me this old leather-bound King James Bible, and he said, just start reading this. And that was kind of it. That was kind of the therapy session in a nutshell. And I thought, okay, that was interesting.
Like, just
So
start reading it just
he
there
just said,
with him?
he said, yeah, he said, this will help you. And I thought, all right, cool.
Wow.
We'll see about that. So slowly but surely I would just read the Bible, and it was I don't really remember. It wasn't like some flash of all of a sudden light came in and helped me at that point, but I do recall, like, I did really, it wasn't even the fact that I was reading it. I think I just liked having it because it was a cool little tiny leather bound thing with a little snap on it that was, I think it was from 1948, so it was pretty old too. So I think it was just the notion of just having it at that point helped.
Yeah.
And then then my dad by this point he had become born again. So he and I would talk philosophically, and then it would always point to Jesus. And I remember at the time I would kind of think, oh man, we were having such a good discussion, and then he had to bring in the Jesus thing.
Oh, interesting.
So, but I remember just his sincerity, and it wasn't, it was just, he was just kind of tilling the ground, and I was still, I think I was still resistant to just completely opening up to Jesus, until one night I was still kind of reading the Bible, and or no, I'm sorry, I'm actually fast forwarding too far. I had gotten a job at a truck stop gas station at this point, because working graveyards at a truck stop was perfect for me at that point. I could sit there and listen to Coast AM, which, for those of you who don't know, it's very fringe topics.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah. Classic Coast to Coast.
Yeah. So I was working graveyards at a truck stop gas station in kind of an industrial part of Denver. And I was listening to Coast, and this trucker came in who, he was in his upper 30s. He was a younger guy. He didn't look like a normal, what I would call the standard fare of truckers.
Uh-huh.
He moved very almost gracefully. Huh. He had a ponytail. He looked very chiseled, young. He looked like a young James Woods.
Nice.
Yeah. And he just kind of just slides up to the counter, and he asked if he could borrow a highlighter. I said, yeah, sure. And then I figured he would go to one of the tables in the because it was like a convenience store truck stop with a few tables you could sit at. And I thought he was just going to go back there and do whatever highlighting he did, but he didn't. He stayed right there next to my register, right in my space. And I'm thinking, oh, he's going to be one of these guys. So he starts highlighting some movies, and I said, all right, I'll do the small talk thing. I just said, you're going to go see a movie? He said, yeah, I'll probably go see about 3 tomorrow. I said, oh, you like movies, huh? And he said, yeah, I do. I like movies. And I said, oh, well, I'm starting to, at this point I'd gotten back into school. I was kind of I was able to kind of go back to school. So I'd started studying film, film in college and stuff. And I said, oh, I'm studying film. And so we just struck up a conversation, and turns out, I'm just going to try to really truncate this story. The guy was basically incredibly intelligent as far as history. He was just really, he was able to, it seemed like he could just have access to information as though the internet were in his brain. Like, he could just type Google and just answer things. So the guy was just incredibly intelligent, and he was kind of, we started playing chess too. We would kind of talk over chess throughout the period of, a month. He would come in every few nights, and we would just play chess and talk.
Weird.
Yeah. And it was almost like I felt like he was kind of leading me to somewhere. because he was kind of building up about history and, oh, have you ever heard of the Druids? Oh, have you ever heard of these guys? And there's this thing with history where, you know, tribal things turn, they would fight one another for resources and land, and that's all history is all basically greed. It's all, you know, and he was kind of just he was kind of like building this picture of history that was leading me to somewhere. And then finally one night he said, have you ever heard of the Illuminati?
Huh.
And I said, no, what is that? And he said, well, it's basically who runs things. And I said, oh, wow, cool. I found somebody who's kind of crazy too.
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds like a Canarian.
Totally. And he kind of got into Scottish Rite Freemasonry, the Illuminati, Wicca, and basically warlocks. That warlocks are basically the Illuminati, are warlocks, higher level, or beings that have access to higher level information and knowledge, who kind of pull the strings behind history.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of gave me just a quick primer on, you know, that's who they are. And he said, I'm one of them. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. This guy is just he got me. He seemed perfectly sane.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, it sounds like that's when you realize you've been playing chess with a crazy man.
I was like, oh, this is too good. This is too good. And then all of a sudden, bam, that same sensation out of nowhere that I had inside that room when I was doing the Rorschach with the psychiatrist, and the same sensation I had that night with the math guy doing LSD hit my brain.
Oh, wow.
And the third eye hit his forehead, and then he kind of said something inside my mind. He kind of just said, yeah, I'm here. And then he pulled out, and I basically had that same stupid grinned look on my face, like, what is going on here? And then he said, I'm sorry. I had to show you. I know you didn't believe me, but I had to show you.
What?
Yeah. And
oh my gosh.
He said, it's cool. I'm not with them anymore. I'm not with them. I'm actually fighting against them, and I'm not with them. And at this point, I'm just thinking, wow. And he goes, yeah, you've been he's the one who told me, yeah, you've been mind screwed by another warlock. He said, well, you also did it to yourself. He was telling me things about myself that I hadn't told him prior. He said, well, you also did it to yourself with the drugs. But he came in and he really did a number on you. And I thought, oh man, wow. At that point, it was just kind of a big wow. He kind of untangled some of the Gordian knot of junk that was in my mind, to the point where I thought, aha. So he said, yes, some of your paranoia is real. There are, in fact, things going on this planet that you were keying into. You just didn't understand exactly what it was. That was kind of what he was getting at with me. And he said, I'm going to debrief you. I'm essentially a whistleblower. Yeah, he was kind of like a whistleblower.
There's definitely, that's the type of experience people are like, I just need some guy to just come and tell me everything.
That's what happened. It was unbelievable, but he basically, at that point I thought, okay, so I am kind of insane, but I'm not totally insane. And so at this point, I'm just like, wow. He said, I said, how many, at this point, the questions were just machine gunning out of me. Like, how many of you are there? How many are there? He said, there's more than you think. He said, and we're at all levels of society. He's like, there's low levels, and then there's ones at the highest levels, and everywhere in between. He said, we're all over the place. And I just thought, well, how do we fight? How do we fight this thing? And he said, his words were exact, because at this point I was kind of getting like riled up, because I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not totally insane. oh, I was kind of screwed over by a warlock. Let's fight. Like Popeye, you know?
Right, yeah.
So he said, oh, anything you do, it's pissing in the dirt. That was how he said it.
Right.
He didn't say wind, he said dirt.
Yeah.
Like it's just peeing in the dirt. I thought, oh man, well then what do we do? Why did you just tell me all this? He said, well, he said, there is one way you can fight them. And I said, what is it? Tell me now. And he said, Jesus Christ. And
really,
like when he said those two words, it was just everything had kind of it just hit, everything hit me at once. It was almost like everything locked into place as far as what had been happening and my spirituality and my prior stuff with Jesus, and kind of in the back of my mind knowing Jesus was real, but never having really understood what it actually meant. And then when he said Jesus Christ, everything just it was almost just my mind was blown again, but in an amazing way. Like everything made perfect sense. Wow. And yeah, and so at first I was just, wow, Jesus Christ, that's amazing. But then my gears kicked back in, my conspiratorial paranoid gears, and I said, whoa. What if they made that up to try to lead us down another rabbit hole? What if that's like the ultimate kind of rabbit hole that they can send you, to the slaughterhouse, as it were. It's just another, tube chute that they send you down.
Yeah.
And he said, that's an excellent, I've thought of that. He said, but what I've known based on my own dealings with people like me is they hate Jesus. That's what he said. He said they hate the real Jesus Christ. He said they even the name kind of repulses them, and they'll do anything they can to just distort, twist, blaspheme, or just make people not, just turn away from the real Jesus. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. He goes, they don't hate anything more than Jesus. He said you could go in and start talking about, whatever, Buddha or whatever, and that doesn't offend them or nothing. He said, but you start getting the real Jesus in there, and it's like, it's like holy water to a vampire. And he said that's why I firmly, he was convinced that it was Jesus. And so at that point I said, well, all right, well, Jesus, okay, well, what about Jesus? He said, just start reading your Bible. And he said, by the way, they're in there. All the stuff that I'm talking about as far as the evil stuff, he says it's in the Bible. The Illuminati is in the Bible. And when he said Illuminati, he wasn't talking about the Weishaupt, Bavarian Illuminati.
Right.
He was using Illuminati as kind of the catch-all term for the principalities and powers,
right? Yeah,
that are operational through the vest. It's almost like the church of the evil one.
Yes. Yeah.
So
the Illuminati being just sort of the hands of the principalities and powers, right? Almost. Yeah.
So yeah, he said, oh, that's A, read your Bible and pray. B, get baptized. And C, find a real good church that that's going to basically help nurture and grow you. And I thought, oh, okay, sounds cool to me. So what ended up happening is I that little Bible that old man gave me, I really started reading it. I really just started reading it and just absorbing it. And then one night while I was in that gas station, I just started praying. I said, Jesus, please heal me of this, these voices. Just get rid of them, please. Just in your holy, in your name, I pray. And all of a sudden, it was just like a vacuum cleaner just sucked just all the just dirt and junk out of me, and there was a feeling of lightness all of a sudden. I think I would call it maybe an auto deliverance or something happened.
Oh, interesting.
Right. It just all those voices, I knew they left. It was as though a weight had lifted from me. I could feel them leave. I could feel them gone.
Yeah.
And at that point, I thought, yeah, this is real. This is the only thing that's worth. Like, it was like I knew that I knew that I knew.
Oh my gosh.
So, A, I started reading my Bible. B, didn't get baptized and didn't find a church. So that's the way I guess I roll. Is yeah, I'll do the one thing, but the other two, I'll just kind of
one step at a time.
Right. So Woods, I called him Woods because he looked like James Woods.
That's the Illuminati guy?
Yeah, the warlock who said he will get baptized, but he had to do some revenge first.
Right.
And he said he was going to use the internet, which is real interesting because at that point, to me, the internet was just emails because this was 1998.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, internet? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, that's how their plans are going to be postponed. He said they're not going to stop them, but they're going to postpone them. He said his theory was the window was going to be between 2015 and 2020 when they were really going to start unleashing their plans.
Oh, interesting.
To where it'll become very obvious.
Interesting timing.
Right. Lots of things that he said also kind of, there was some verification stuff. So, and I also have to take that with a grain of salt, saying, where is he, his information was from the other side. So not all of it's going to be completely accurate.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's almost like he had maybe some older battle plans that they might have, because, they like to revise and obviously
shifting all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But the general gist seems to be pretty correct of a lot of things that he's told me. But then he kind of uncannily disappeared from my life after that, after we'd hung out for, a good 6-7 months. And then in came this pastor couple from Texas. They just pulled up in some van one night while I was at the gas station, and I was reading my Bible, and this guy, kind of sharp dressed, and not totally, he was dressed nicely, like in a suit. And his wife was in kind of a pleasant prairie dress type thing. And he had this big grin on his face, and he asked if he could get some hot water for his tea. And I said, sure. And then he said, is that a King James Bible you're reading? I said, why, yes, it is. And he said, oh, Barbara, we're in the right place. I knew it. The Holy Ghost led us here. And I go, oh, wow, this is going to be interesting. He said, I got to get you a bigger Bible. Because the one that I had was a small leather bound, very, very handheld. It could almost fit in like your pocket.
Right. Yeah.
And so he's like, we got to get you a big one. I said, oh, okay, cool. And so we sat down and had a little Bible study that night. And one of the things his wife, she said, oh, wow, she actually, I guess she claimed to be kind of prophetic. And she said, let me pray over you. And she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, oh, you've had some goings on with some warlocks. And I go, whoa, you gotta be kidding me, man. Am I on some kind of show that's eventually going to air?
Am I being punked?
Is this just a real
punked,
elongated punked? Yeah. It's going to start with that night of the trip and then, move on. Yeah. And so I thought, oh, wow. And they said, yeah, let's, basically she kind of just prayed and prophesied over me. And then we just sat there and did Bible study. And his whole thing was, just maybe find some verses that really, stand out to you and memorize them. So his whole thing, Bible study 101 was memorize some verses. He definitely pointed out a lot of verses that said blood of Jesus. Mm-hmm. He said the blood, that's the blood. The blood of Jesus is very powerful. You can really fight the enemy through the blood. And so he kind of took me through the Bible and showed me how to use the little the King James has the you can the reference scriptures that you can go to. if you're reading a scripture, it has a little also in Psalm 91 or
Oh,
something.
right. Yeah.
So he said, yeah, flip to anytime you see one of those, also go to that passage. So then you'll start going from the front or from the New to the Old Testament, So it was basically just basic kind of how to go through your Bible for a dummy like me. Um, and then, a week later, he brought a giant King James Bible, like Bible thumping Bible with my name on the front. And then he had also brought one for my brother and my dad because he asked what their names were. So that was kind of my initial. I didn't go to a church. Church came to me.
Yeah, seriously, it was chasing you down the whole
Right.
time. You would take one step, and sounds like God would take the next 2 steps for you.
I know. It was just an incredible blessing. And so eventually that was the Bible study time. And then one night while I was praying, I think I just read Romans 12, and my prayers were starting to feel rote. Like I felt like I was praying too much for just what I wanted. And there was that line, we know not how we should pray, but the Spirit prays, works through us with groanings that cannot be uttered. And so I started, I was just saying, God, I teach me how to pray. I feel like I'm just kind of praying by rote or something. I don't know. Just teach me how to pray. And then that's when I just started bubbling out this strange, archaic thing that was just coming out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it was very, very odd. As far as not being on any drugs, it was probably the oddest thing that had ever occurred to me.
Yeah, I think I think besides being on drugs, praying in tongues is pretty much the weirdest thing anybody could do.
Yes, but it was also
in the natural.
Yeah, it was, but it was also very powerful and it was almost like, hey, I want to show you a drug that's better than drugs.
Yeah.
And so there was this thing that felt to me like like some ancient language, I guess, is what it felt like to me. Just kind of knowing peripherally just languages and stuff. It definitely had some kind of structure to it, and it felt like a language. So I just kind of rolled with it for about 5 or 10 minutes just by myself in the room. And then the next time I saw them, which a couple nights later, I wanted to ask them about it. And I didn't even need to. He came in and he said, "Oh, you got it, didn't you?" And I said, "Got what?" He said, "You got the gift of tongues." I'm going, okay, what is it? He said, "That's your own private prayer language. You can pray at any time." He's just like, that's between you and God. You just pray it you can pray it under your breath. You can just pray at any time and just use it to help build yourself up. And it'll help you just in your prayer.
Yeah.
So the way he taught it was just pray it under your breath. If you're in public, don't make a spectacle of it. And, just kind of use it. It's like an exercise type thing. So I just thought, wow. And I had never heard of tongues. I wasn't somebody who was around circles that had known what it was. I didn't see like a 2020 special on it or anything.
A 2020 special.
Like tonight on 2020, tongues and snake handlers.
Totally.
I had no background with that.
Well, that's probably for the best.
Exactly.
A lot of times that's for the best.
Exactly. Because now anytime my faith is in question, or even if I am praying in that under my breath and my mind starts trying to tell me this is nonsense.
Yeah.
I'll just pull up that, that QuickTime file in my mind and just say, oh no, what about that? Remember that time when it first came on?
Yeah. I had no, out of nowhere, and you're just babbling gobbledygook alone in your room out of nowhere after asking for how to pray.
Right. Wow. Gee, imagine that. So it was, the Holy Spirit was definitely trying to really just kind of help me get up and, get on my feet and just kind of get into the get into the fold. So finally they and I didn't tell anybody else besides them about it. So when they finally did end up baptizing us in this little tub in some kind of dingy downtown church area, um, which is the only way I would have had it. When my brother came out, he started also speaking in tongues. So that was pretty powerful. And then a few friends of mine who we were kind of starting to have a little bit of a Bible kind of gang, I guess. We were all kind of starting to get into the scriptures. Like one of my brother's friends and one of my friends kind of came to me and they said, "Hey man, I think I started speaking in this other language. It just kind of started coming out of me." And so there was something moving in us at that time, as a little kind of our own little like platoon, I guess. So it was very strange, very odd, very powerful time.
Yeah,
With the
sounds
move.
like it.
Yeah, so those were the guys that really helped me get really send me into the onto the battlefield with at least some equipment and understanding what was going on, uh, which was just tremendous. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what a turnaround. What a long journey this has been.
right,
That's
yeah,
amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got hooked up with a group of good folks. I mean, uh, this your Bible platoon,
yeah.
Bible squad.
Yeah, it was kind of a cool time. We would go downtown and we would kind of go talk to homeless people and stuff. And some of those homeless people that we would talk to would know more scripture than we did. It was pretty amazing.
Oh, totally.
One guy he goes, "Let me see your Bible," and he grabbed it and he opened Isaiah 52, and he just started reading, and about he who they pierced and stuff, and it was pretty powerful stuff. So it was really there was definitely a lot of we were just kind of just winging it by the Holy Spirit, not having any idea of what was happening.
Yeah.
Uh, and and
And this was in Colorado?
yeah, this was still in Colorado.
Yeah. That's
So
radical. And so you got totally plugged in. You got I mean, I mean, as much as I'd love to think that that was the end of the story, but
I wish, because
you
the
had
enemy
the
definitely
halcyon days, but then you became dangerous.
oh, and then the enemy likes to exploit our weaknesses, doesn't he?
Yeah. Do I?
Yeah, that
d- d-
didn't go to a church. That's the thing. In hindsight, is and once our little platoon was great while it lasted, but we all kind of dispersed because my brother went into the army,
Life happens.
right? And at that point, there was some cracks in my. It was almost like don't get cocky. And I thought, oh, I'm like a spiritual lone ranger. I can do this. I can do this. I don't need to go to any church. There's no church that'll,
Right.
I don't know. I had this weird, um, I still had this kind of idea that church was either A, the Catholic mass that didn't really do anything for me, or B, kind of that mega church thing with kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, I guess I didn't really do my due diligence to
Yeah,
actually.
you had never really had an experience with, well, I hesitate to say normal church, but a church other than a mega church that maybe you saw on TV or in
Yeah,
culture and your Eastern Catholic
right.
tradition.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, the booze starts to come back in because I'm thinking, oh, a little wine. I'm reading my Bible. I'm like, oh yeah, a little wine. I can drink a little wine. Cool.
Classic.
Yeah, really take and the Holy Spirit kept leading me to scriptures that said, "Be not drunk with wine."
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, yeah, but I'm still gonna, I can still have some wine, and that was the exploitation that even if you're spirit filled, and this is something that's like controversial or whatever, but even if you're spirit filled and you don't have kind of a grounding with other Christians around you, kind of helping check you,
Yeah.
you can really go off on tangents, even with the spirit trying to lead you. The spirit's not gonna like put strings on you and lead you like a puppet.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
No. The problem with being alone is you've just got your own thoughts.
mm-hmm.
And again, as much as the spirit will lead you, I mean, there's if anybody and everybody should admit that we're not always the best at hearing the spirit when it talks.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's also this thing where, all right, so I'm big into spiritual warfare, but guess what? If you really study warfare, it's all about a unity of having your army with you.
Yeah.
There's no real like the whole John Rambo thing it's very romantic.
Yeah.
But that ain't gonna win war. I mean, that's not how you wage war.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
And even if you look at like how the Romans waged it, they were like a unit. They were a tight unit.
Yeah.
So that was I basically got picked off. And so slowly the alcohol kind of came back in. And so I got back into basically drinking. So I was still praying. I was still doing, I was still loving Jesus, but I was becoming a drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I had to wrestle with for a while. So, from when I moved to LA, I had sobered up for a year in LA, and then slowly I started drinking again, and then for another 4 years I drank, and then finally I started getting gout in my knee.
Oh, yeah. So you're getting the real.
Yeah, it was like God saying, "Look, you can keep drinking, but it's not gonna get any better, dude."
It's not great.
Yeah. So finally one night I just basically I had such pain in my knee from the gout that I essentially had kind of it was almost like an out of body experience. It was like pain was so great that and all I was doing was crying out to Jesus, just please help me, Jesus, please. And so he said, all right, there's two things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to stop drinking, and you're going to have to ask this girl, Simone, out again, who I'd already gone out on a date with, but it didn't really I was still drinking and she was sober.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to, I already thought, I don't think that'll work. I don't want to bring her. It was more of, I didn't want her to ruin her sobriety. It wasn't that she would. It was like, at this point I already knew I was an alcoholic, and it wasn't, it was just, I just knew that I would be like cancer for her.
Yeah.
But those were the two things that I remember distinctly God saying, all right, if this isn't a joke, this isn't a game, so those were the two things that he instructed me to do. And so I ended up calling her up, and she said, "Are you done?" I said, "Yeah." And she said she heard something in my voice that sounded very like, "I'm done drinking."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Yeah, you want to go out?" She said, "Yeah, sure. What do you want to do?" I said, "Let's go see a movie." "All right, which one?" "Apocalypto." Very romantic.
Weird date movie, bro. I want to see a movie that's filled with human sacrifice and absolutely no English whatsoever, and a bunch of naked people running around.
Very romantic.
A lot of doom.
So I show up at the theater with a cane, and I'm just looking like bloated, like just some.
Oh gosh, dude!
I'm just
rough shape, man.
Yeah, I was in rough shape at that point, but she said that there was something in my eyes, and so we watched the movie. Then we went into this little cafe, and I basically just told her. I said, "Yeah, I escaped from an insane asylum and did a bunch of acid." Like I just basically I was like, "This is me. This is who I am."
Gave her the TJT treatment.
Yeah.
The whole story.
And she said, "That's what did it." She was like, "I love this guy."
That's what sealed the deal. Whoa, yeah, buddy.
So yeah, that ended up becoming my wife, who also returned. The reason now why I know the Holy Spirit told me to ask her out was not only to just obey his, obey him.
Yeah.
Just, it's kind of like go march around that Jericho for 7 days.
Yeah.
It's like, it sounds like the most asinine war battle plan ever.
Right.
But it's like, all right, I guess we'll just obey.
Hey, that's what it takes, man. You just
And
do what he says.
yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. And
But it also
what a
brought
cool
her.
girl.
Yeah, but she also came to Jesus. So,
Yeah.
And now we're both just building one another up in the faith, which is just amazing because she has also her own little crazy story background too. So,
Well, that
yeah,
helps when it comes to accepting, all the acid and the psychiatric ward and the warlocks. She must have a pretty crazy story too.
yeah,
To not be totally scared away.
right.
Well,
That was the test. It's like, all right, if she's crazy enough to date me, then that's my lady.
that is so cool, man. Well, good for you. That's the best possible ending to that story I could imagine.
Yeah. Oh, and we
Man.
started going to church.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I realized my weak spot was let's go to church. Let's start going to church. So, we ended up going to church, and then that's kind of also help pad that building of our of building us up in the spirit,
Right, right.
and helping so we don't fall prey again to some of those tactics, which are always being used. It's not like they're changing it up that much. They keep using the same ones, but maybe with a different little nuance or something.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, that's
So
great. So you're all hooked in, you supported, you got your partner. I'm
yeah,
assuming you're not hearing the voices anymore.
no,
Yeah, they're all sucked out, vacuum
yeah,
cleaned.
that's right.
Holy smokes, man. That
Yeah,
is an incredible story.
yeah.
And
It's
I don't
definitely
even
trippy.
this is the part of the episode where I usually ask, like, when'd you get into the weird stuff?
Right. It's
That's
all
not
weird
even a
too.
relevant question anymore.
It's all weird.
Oh
I
man.
will I will give a tip though, which I think you guys already know, but I've known this just from trial and error. And one thing that definitely helped solidify yet another kind of confirmation of my faith is I had a lot of what night terror / shadow people / whatever you want to call it
Like
throughout this entire thing.
sleep paralysis stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it came in all sorts of manifestations of the alien thing, or a shaman dancing at the foot of my bed,
Oh my
or
gosh.
just plain dark demonic presence. So it's like they tried to wear different costumes.
Yeah.
And before I became born of the spirit, I would try to use every possible technique to try to thwart them. I even tried to use Tai Chi when I was into Tai Chi.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like I was half asleep, but I was using like mental Tai Chi.
Trying to, yeah.
And it was like a wrestling match. It was really strange.
Whoa.
But by the time when I was with the preacher couple from Texas, they in the blood of they said use the blood of Jesus. So I started just blurting out the blood of Jesus. And I remember the first time I did that, when I was able to blurt it out, the thing just disappeared.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so
I mean, I second that motion. It always works, man.
yeah. So I hear other people say the name of Jesus, but I think it's just the faith of the name of Jesus. How like
Yeah.
trusting that Jesus can just send these guys back to wherever,
Yeah.
whatever junk
Wow.
pit that they're from.
Yeah. So a lot of sleep paralysis through this whole experience then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Wow.
still attempts to come back.
Hmm.
I mean, I've even had it try to during my Christian walk, even recently.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is now I don't. I almost and Lord help me, I don't want to get arrogant or cocky, but I'm confident enough in the power of Jesus that there's the last few times I actually felt uh, aggressive when I felt it coming on.
Mm.
I almost felt like I want to chase these guys down and
Go into
just act
hunting mode.
right. It was very strange. It felt like very like I felt very like Holy Spirit powered aggression, not like some kind of animalistic aggression, but almost like a Holy Spirit. Like I want this thing gone and dead.
Right, right. Like going after the source type of thing. The
Right,
perps.
right,
Gotta catch the
exactly.
perps.
Yeah. So it's not even that now I almost, and I, like I said, I don't want to get cocky because that can be one of my weak spots. It's now there is almost this thing like, bring it on.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's only very, no, not very recently, only in the past few years that, um, I mean, I've been very open about my sleep paralysis experiences for quite some time now. In the
Yeah.
past couple of years, I mean, I think it was like, now that I'm thinking about it, it was something very similar. It was like I had nothing for a long, long time. And then once, like in the past couple of years, I felt it coming on, like during a
Mhm.
nap or something. And I remember feeling that same thing, just like, oh yeah, let's do this. Bring it on, dude. And then immediately it would just like go away. I'm like, oh, where you going? Why you running?
That's right. Wussy.
That's right. Keep walking.
Oh, yes.
That's
That's
so
that's
funny.
the power of the Holy Spirit with us.
Yeah,
It's
it's
it kinda
totally true.
reminds me, was it, I can't remember, was it Elisha? I can't remember. When he's like, "Oh, just show this guy." And he shows him the armies of the Lord that
Oh,
are,
right. Yep,
it's
totally.
kinda like, "Come on, dude. We got this,
Yeah,
bro."
that's how it is, man. Well,
Yeah.
dude, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for reaching out, and like I said, you answered the call. It was a
Mm.
short-term notice, and I'm so stoked that you did.
Man, I'm
Um,
glad that you actually had a little bit of a delay because it gave me time to just sit here and breathe. Because it's so weird that at first I thought, "I'll do it," and then as soon as 7 o'clock rolled down, I started feeling my heart palpitate, and I
mhm.
started feeling like as I turned the microphone on, I was like, "I can actually hear my heart beating. I'm getting nervous." So I think the Holy Spirit, I think that was meant to be so I could just sit here and kinda compose myself and pray for what I should say that could hopefully bless and inspire and help somebody else too, and to
Well,
glorify and magnify God. Because I think that time that, you were, getting ready helped me to
get in
do
the
that.
zone. You got in the
Right.
zone, man. And I can't let you go before I ask you about some furry friends,
That's
bro.
right. Yeah.
Tell me about them.
Well, I have a little dog named Callie, who's she's a little Chihuahua slash Pomeranian, or uh what's the I think we think she's Pomeranian Chihuahua mix with these giant ears and these little.
Nice.
She's a tiny dog, a dog that I never would have thought I would have owned.
Long
But
hair or short hair?
she's short,
Yeah.
and she's like kind of like a cat. She'll jump up on the back of the couch or the chair that we have, and
Uh
she kind of will move like a cat sometimes,
huh.
which is pretty amazing. And yeah, she was a rescue. She was in a kill shelter, which is pretty.
Oh, yikes.
It was like, haven't you people heard of the internet?
Right.
When I took her to work to see if she would be able, if I would be able to take her to work with me, about five people said, "If you don't take this dog, I will." And I
Wow.
just thought, man, why didn't these people just put her? But I guess it's because so we could rescue her.
Yeah, there you go.
So she's just a cute little furry dog. But I did have a cat back in Colorado during the day named Fellini,
Fellini, nice.
Yeah, he was a little gray tabby that I had that refused to be an indoor cat.
Yes, a wild one.
Yeah, and so I lived in a neighborhood that didn't have, too busy of roads. Cats could it was like a cat neighborhood, but it was a tough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he was, I'm just saying tough by cat tough. It was like a blue collar tough neighborhood.
Yeah.
Blue collar cats lived there. And he was one of those kind of mini, like, one of those cats that they don't get very big. They almost kind of look like right after a cat's a kitten, where they're kind of like a medium or small size.
Yeah, a little teenager cat.
Yeah, he was just kind of a little guy, but there was one day he meowed for 48 hours straight, standing by the window because he refused to not go outside.
Refused to be contained.
And he would get beat up because he was a smaller guy.
Oh yeah, out on the streets, you mean?
Yeah, he would come home just roughed up, and so I had a bigger dog at this time who he grew up with. They were buddies, so the dog would just lick his wounds, and
that's cute.
As soon as he would get better, he'd roll on out. I thought, man, I can't. This cat's gonna die. Like, he's just gonna get killed.
Yeah.
So at this time, I remember a buddy of mine saying how creatine was found in every mammal. So, and I was starting to take a lot of creatine for weightlifting, and creatine's kind of like an amino acid that you can take.
It's like a muscle building type of thing.
Right. It helps. Yeah, it helps muscle repairs, and it helps building muscle. So, I thought, oh wow, this is found in every mammal. Like, a mammal can have this stuff. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to give Fellini creatine. So I did kind of the math. I kind of figured out his weight and size, and I kind of figured, okay, for a human, 175-pound human, you take this amount. So I'll give Fellini this amount, and I'll put it in his tuna fish. So at this point I was like getting him some good solid tuna fish protein.
It's gonna get him jacked.
And creatine. And so in about 2 weeks he became a muscle cat. He had a washboard stomach. You know how most cats have the gullet? They have a little, he had 6-pack abs. I mean, his stomach was tight. And he was still the kind of the same size, but he had density.
Yeah.
When you pick him up, it felt like you were picking up a muscle.
Oh my gosh.
And he was very confident. And so I let him back out into the wild, and sure enough, he started going out for longer and longer periods, which somebody, I don't know if it was a veterinarian or some cat expert, told me that means his territory is getting bigger and bigger. And he's patrolling bigger and bigger areas. That's why he's out longer. And
you helped your cat take over the neighborhood.
Yeah. And I actually saw him in action one time. When I got home, he was out. I think some other cat was maybe trying to get bad on trying to impinge or come in on his territory, trying to front. And so it was right by our house, and I go, oh man, this looks like a showdown. So he was just sitting there kind of licking his paws, just casually, like whatever, kind of like maybe Clint Eastwood and some, spaghetti western.
Quiet confidence.
And the other cat, who was twice his size, was arching its back, doing the, doing the, like, I'm going to get ya.
Getting his hackles up, trying to talk smack.
And Fellini's just licking his paws. And then all of a sudden, just like a shot from a cannon, he just bolts towards this cat. And he just does a flurry of just jabs and paws.
Just like a thousand fist punch or something.
The other cat it just took off. It was done. And then he kind of looks at me and he just kind of walks and then he just starts licking his paw again. Like, yeah,
The
that's right.
confidence of a cat on 2 weeks of creatine.
Yeah.
That's an incredible cat bodybuilding tip, man. I never would have thought.
No, no, but I had to do something. It
You,
was it was a strange Hail Mary pass that I thought, hey, might as well try it. And
I can't have my cat getting punked out there on the streets every day.
no. And he became the coolest, toughest cat I think I'll have ever had.
That is
So
so funny. That is such a good story. I might have to look into that. I wonder if there's like a community of cat bodybuilder owners who just like, does your cat suffer from lack of dominance in the field? Get cat creatine. Probably market that.
you know what? You probably could.
Wow, we got a lot of ideas, man.
All right, we gotta get on
We
this.
gotta get on this.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll find a supplier.
I like it.
Wow. Dude, this has been so cool. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this forum. And it's just amazing that you guys are able, you and Gons on the fringe stuff, and you with this one. This one I really appreciate as far as it's the healing aspect of just listening to other people's testimonies and trials and tribulations. It is a blessing to be able to hear it and now be able to hopefully, even if it's one person that's hearing voices or something that's done too much acid, that somehow God is able to heal them too.
Absolutely. I guarantee it. I guarantee there's at least one person out there who this has been a huge moment to listen to this. And it's taken me a while to accept that, people actually get something out of this, but I know that it's true. I hear it all the time. And so, Peter, thank you so much, man. Your story is really incredible and, dare I say, has been incredibly entertaining for myself. So I appreciate that. And,
Cool.
I'll leave you with the last words if you have anything else to say to your new adoring fans.
I love you all, and I love the fact that we all have different stories, totally different, coming from totally different areas of different, just the spectrum of stuff that we come from. But I feel like I'm unified with every single person through our commonality, and which is Jesus.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that he uses a motley array of just craziness, non-craziness, straightforwardness, and we all have the same commonality, and we're all being brought closer, ushering forth his will and his advancing his cause.
That's
And
right.
I even though I haven't met any any of the Joyspiracy people in the flesh, it's almost like there's a spiritual bond that I can feel,
Yeah.
which I think is just amazing. And I just pray for every single person that's been on this show. I pray for you, that you may just continue to do this kind of ministry, and that other people maybe benefit from it, and that God's work just keeps rolling forth.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Amen.
So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
I thank all the Joyspirians, Joyspiracy theorists.
Hey, there you go. I haven't given a name to the Joyspirians or the Joyspiracy theorists. I like both of those.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I'll take
It's
that.
yours.
Thank you. The check's in the mail.
Awesome.
All right, Peter. Thanks again so much, man. And you and I are going to stay in contact. Say bye to everybody.
I shall bid you all adieu. God bless and good night. Or good day if you're listening to this during the day.
That's perfect. Hey, everybody. Did you like that? Did you like that? because I like that. Thank you, Peter, so much for coming on the show, buddy. Wow, what an incredible life experience. I'm serious. We gotta write that down. Somebody write that down. Okay, good. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Joyspiracy Theory. Here's the thing. If you like the show, if you find it rewarding, if you find it edifying or unique or just valuable in any way, please consider heading over to patreon.com/thejoyspiracytheory and signing up to support the show. It's just a couple bucks a month, and you can get some shout-outs, some bonus episodes, all sorts of... It's been a little lonely over there, so I think somebody's heartstrings are being tugged. And if you feel the urge to support the show, to just give me the warm and fuzzies, that somebody out there took the time and the energy to sign up for Patreon to help keep this show going, head over to patreon.com/thejoyspiracytheory, and that's a good place to do it. But totally understand if financial support is not in the cards. A great way you can support the show is leaving ratings and reviews. Make sure to head over to iTunes or whatever podcatcher you use and leave a rating and a review. A rating is stars. Remember this. 5 stars, good. 1 star, bad. And reviews is just words explaining why you did what you did. And that helps the show out a lot. Our world is ruled by algorithms. And so getting those ratings and reviews really helps the iTunes robots spread the show around. Also, even better, if you guys have friends who do not listen to the Joyspiracy Theory yet, just share this with them. Click the little share button, text it right to their phone, or post it on Facebook. Give me a tag so I can hit the thumbs up and let you know how much I value that. Other than that, I think we're good. Remember, you can go to thejoyspiracytheory.com, and on the right-hand side, there's a little tab. Leave me a voice message. Gotta hear from you. Bye.